Inside the cave, both divers were already trapped. The exit route had been blocked by debris. The visibility was so low that they couldn't even clearly see their own hands. And now, both of them had only a few minutes of oxygen left. At that moment, one diver went back to search for an alternate route, while the other stayed right there near the debris. After 5 minutes, when he came back, what he saw was truly an unbelievable sight. Welcome back once again to Noble's Creation.
Ladies and gentlemen, cave diving is very different from normal scuba diving. In scuba diving, people usually go into open water, where if any problem occurs, just a single push can take a diver straight to the surface. But in cave diving, there are rocks above and on the sides, and there is only a narrow path. If oxygen runs out, equipment fails, or the diver loses direction, then it's game over. Cave diving is the only sport where an extraordinarily high casualty rate is found.
In swimming, out of every 100,000 participants, 1.77 deaths are recorded. Similarly, in base jumping, the number is 43. But when it comes to cave divers, there are 138 casualties per 100,000 divers. Every year, around 25 to 30 divers lose their lives in these locations worldwide. And this number is small only because very few people actually do cave diving. Sherlock Springs, located in Florida, is like a maze, where some tunnels are dead ends and some lead directly toward death. The cave depth ranges from 80 to 120 feet.
The water temperature always remains around 22 degrees Celsius, and the visibility is normally crystal clear. It was the morning of November 17, 1991. The weather was pleasant, and soft sunlight was shimmering on the surface of the water. Divers from WKPP, the Woodville Karst Plain Project, set out on a mission. Their goal was to explore new routes inside the cave and create a proper map of them. Among those divers, 2 new divers were also included, Bill and Parker.
Both were friends, and the passion for adventure was overwhelming. For them, this was not just a dive, but a chance to push their limits and set a new record. But little did they know, this journey was going to become the biggest test of their lives. Hearing the name Sherlock Springs, most people imagine a small pond, because from above, it looks like a circular spring about 56 meters wide, with a depth of only 9 meters. But the real story is hidden beneath it. A limestone cave system that goes as deep as 91 meters. The tunnels, chambers, and internal pathways make a person feel like they have entered another world. This cave is part of the Wakula Cave System, which is considered one of the largest underwater cave networks in the world. From the entrance begins a tight passage called the Scars Restriction Zone. It is so tight that only one diver can pass at a time, and so narrow that while passing through, the diver's shoulders and tank scrape against the rocks. But as soon as this zone ends, a breathtaking scene opens up ahead. It feels exactly like a highway tunnel inside the ocean. This place is both beautiful and dangerous. That day, the WKPP team divided the divers into 4 groups for the mission. Each group had different responsibilities, so that not even a single mistake could occur. The first group stayed on the surface near the cave entrance. Their job was to monitor the entire mission, record time, and respond immediately in case of an emergency. This team functioned like a safety line from above. The second group consisted of divers who were responsible for placing decompression tanks at the correct locations. These cylinders were hung at positions where divers could get extra oxygen while returning. This task was the backbone of the mission, because without decompression stops, no diver could return alive. The third group handled line setup and safety checks. They secured the guy lines properly, provided extra backups, and ensured that the path ahead was clear and safe. And the fourth team was the explorers, Bill and Parker's team, who were actually going to explore the cave. Around 10 in the morning, all teams entered the water. Bill and Parker checked their scooters and tanks, said a short prayer, and descended into the depths of the cave. At 20 meters, they encountered George, who was part of the decompression team. Moving forward, they soon reached the scar's restriction zone. Adjusting their buoyancy, they continued moving forward using their scooters. Soon, they entered a large chamber called Wakula. The view was so magnificent that it felt like floating in an open sky. Within 40 minutes, they reached Grand Canyon 4, and according to the plan, they descended further down.
The tunnel was narrow, but the scooters were functioning properly. After 25 minutes of effort, they reached the lower Wakula room, from where they found a path leading upward. Up to this point, everything had been completely normal. Even inside the narrow cave, they were feeling very free. At this point, seeing their oxygen level dropping, both decided to return. But they had no idea that their freedom might end right there. When they came back to the Grand Canyon turn, the tunnel had completely changed. The water was filled with silt. The visibility was so low that the divers couldn't even see their own hands. Grand Canyon was no longer the same as it had been just minutes earlier. This was a warning sign, which both Bill and Parker could clearly feel. Finding the path ahead became extremely difficult. Holding on to the guideline, they kept moving forward because they believed that the scar's restriction zone was just a little ahead. But after a short while, they realized that the path ahead was blocked. A pile of debris had sealed the route upward, and the guideline was also buried under the debris. At that moment, their oxygen tanks were almost empty, and seeing this, both of them started to panic. Bill signaled Parker and wrote on his slate, "Stay here. I'll go check the line." He went back to the turn to confirm whether they were on the wrong path or not. But after checking the line marker, it became clear that this was indeed the exit route. Bill quickly returned to inform Parker, but after just 5 minutes, when he came back, what he saw was that Parker was no longer there. In the dark cave, Bill was now terrified. He searched all around using his torch, but in the cloud of silt, there was no sign of Parker. Then he noticed a slight flow of water coming through the debris. He thought maybe Parker had gone through there to the other side. But now there was no time to think, because his oxygen level was about to run out. He started digging the debris with his hands. Every second felt like death was getting closer. The debris section was only about 2 meters long, but for Bill, it felt like miles. Finally, he managed to create an opening and got inside. Now the tunnel was turning upward. Bill saw a regulator hanging from the guideline, but he ignored it because his own oxygen was almost finished. He kept moving forward, holding his breath. Finally, at a depth of 30 meters, he reached a decompression station and took a deep breath from the oxygen tank. He thought everything would now be fine. But then his eyes fell on Parker's oxygen cylinder, which was completely untouched. That meant Parker had not come there. If Parker was not behind the debris and had not come up either, then where did he go? Bill's heart was now completely broken. He started feeling that his friend was no longer alive. At that moment, George, a member of the decompression team, came down. Bill wrote on his slate and told him that Parker was probably dead. George tried to take Bill back to the surface, but Bill was in such deep shock that he didn't want to go back without Parker. George went back up, brought other divers with him, and then together they forcefully took Bill back to the surface. Parker's disappearance left everyone outside the cave in shock. The divers went back into the cave again, but at the spot where he had disappeared, there was no sign of him at all. They only found his regulator and cylinder lying separately. The next morning, Parker's body was found in the upper section of the cave. From this, it was revealed that he had removed his gear and was only wearing his wetsuit. But why had he removed his gear? Perhaps he thought that buoyancy would carry him upward. But just a few meters away from the decompression tank, he lost consciousness and died right there. Years after this incident, scientists conducted an investigation, and the real reason came to light. It was discovered that when the divers were going inside at a depth of 20 meters, they were performing decompression. During that time, their bubbles kept collecting under the cave ceiling. These bubbles gradually reduced the buoyancy effect supporting the ceiling, because of which the ceiling became weak. When George exited the cave, a portion of the ceiling collapsed behind him. That collapse triggered a landslide, which blocked the passage completely. The investigation also revealed that when Parker was trapped behind the debris on the way back, he had already understood that this was the exit route. That is why, without wasting any time, he started digging it with his hands, so that when Bill returned, the path would already be open. But perhaps during this effort, his oxygen level dropped, and he didn't even get the chance to tell Bill that I've already made a way out for you. That day, if Parker had not sacrificed his life to create that path, then Bill might have also died behind that debris. We hope you will once again like and share this video. Thank you very much for your love-filled comments.